Said to be meant for orphans of deceased mine workers has been looted from SATAWU. The money was allegedly laundered by the union's former General Secretary, among others. I'm now joined in studio by Anele Kiet. He's the Deputy General Secretary of SATAWU. Thanks so much for your time on SABC News. Explain to us what happened here.
The 65 million referred to in this matter is the money from the pension fund of the miners. SATAWU have its own investment wing called Bashumi Investment, which the former General Secretary, Zenzo Mahlangu, was the sole person operating the entity as a CEO. So the union itself didn't have any say on the business of Bashumi because the former General Secretary was running the show alone. So the union was never aware of such monies. We only find out when we conducted the forensic audit.
How does it happen that only one person has access to the investment arm of a union with over 100,000 members?
Under normal circumstances, when you form an investment wing, there should be trustees, which those trustees were elected, but the General Secretary, as a CEO of the investment wing, was running the show alone. So therefore, a report never came to SATAWU that such transactions were taking place within our investment wing. We never received a report that comes from the investment wing that there's some activities that are taking place.
But you know that you've got an investment wing. So as SATAWU, should you not say after a year of not getting anything, what's happening here? What's happening with the money, the probably millions or hundreds of millions of rands that are in the investment wing?
If you go back to 2015, provinces have went to COSATU requesting intervention that structures of the organizations are not sitting, because at the time, as provinces, we were calling for accountability from the General Secretary to come and account in the structures of the organization. And at the time, he refused to call structural meetings because he knew that we wanted to understand what is happening both within the union and what is happening in our investment wing, because already at that time, there were calls from certain members of the union that things are not going well. We could see that the union is not performing well financially, so we had to get answers, but unfortunately, the then General Secretary didn't want to convene Central Executive Committee meetings where he must account, and all the people who were calling for Central Executive Committee to sit were expelled in the organization.
Okay, I'm glad you brought up that 2015 and people trying to raise issues, because there were very serious allegations. One, that SATAWU had been hijacked by people who were not South African, who had falsely obtained South African citizenship and were looting the company, that there were people who were murdering people even to cover up what they were doing, and that money was being stolen and there was intimidation. I'm just trying to understand why, if there was a concern raised like you've spoken about, and whistleblowers like that, then it's taken so long for this process to get to where we are now, where there's a report by Sekela Qabiso and the like.
No, look, first, I think I must indicate that when Zenzo Mahlangu became the General Secretary, the union was operating on deficit. And he became the interim General Secretary after the resignation of the former General Secretary. In a space of 4 months, he turned things around and presented a surplus to a Central Executive Committee, and the structures were impressed with what he did in a space of 4 months. So it was difficult not to trust him as a leader who came and turned things around within the organization. So that's number one. But when it comes to the issue of nationality, yes, indeed, there have been those allegations that he's a foreigner. But you will understand that as a union, we only meet with members at a time when they join the union. So they get employed elsewhere, and then they join the union. In our membership form, there's a space where a member puts his identity number. So on those bases, we can't be the ones who are questioning the nationality of the person up until then Home Affairs came on board and declared him as an immigrant.
I want to go into this report. Sekela Xabiso says that SATAWU's executive committee believed that it had paid 22 million rand in cash for the headquarters in Braamfontein. There was actually a bond or loan from a bank to cover that. It comes to the question that I've been asking in different manners. It seems as though there was rampant money being stolen and not enough oversight from SATAWU. So then the question would have to be asked, why was there no oversight? Because at some point then someone would say maybe there was complicity with money being stolen out of the union.
No, our position is very clear on this matter. Since 2015, the Central Executive Committee, through its provinces, because people who sit in the Central Executive Committee are provinces. Provinces, your Northern Cape, Free State, Limpopo, wrote letters to head office through the office of the General Secretary, requesting a Central Executive Committee meeting to be convened in order for the General Secretary to come and account on these issues. The General Secretary wrote back to provinces at the time and told them that the number that has been requesting such meetings is below 50+1 of the structures of the organization in terms of our constitution. Therefore, such meeting could not sit. And subsequent to that, people were then suspended for calling such a meeting. So that's the type of the person that we were dealing with at the time. When you raise issues, then you get dealt with. That's the situation that we find ourselves in. But in 2017, through the court, because members of the unions in these provinces that I've mentioned were approached the court that we can't continue to operate in this fashion as a union. Firstly, the sitting leadership at the time, their time of office came lapsed at that time. So they had to approach the court, and the court granted that the Central Executive Committee must sit. Even delegates to that meeting transported themselves because the acting General Secretary at the time, after the deportation of Zenzo Mahlangu, Zakaria Msutwana, also was refusing to convene the meeting because he knew that that's the structure where they're supposed to be accounting to.
My question would then be, what is SATAWU going to do differently? Because you've seen that one person can wreak havoc within an organization and loot an organization. What checks and balances have you got in place to ensure that this type of thing does not happen again?
Of course, experience will teach you how to move forward. We went to the National Congress last year in September, and the Congress resolved that this year in November we must convene a policy conference where we will be developing new policies, and we will have to come up with a policy that talks on investment. The way we want to structure the trustees of the investment arm of the union, we want all provinces to be represented so that you know that you have about 9 people plus the national office bearers who goes to the Central Executive Committee and account on what is happening on the investment wing of the organization.
So what's going to happen to those alleged beneficiaries of the 65 million rand who are said to be poor orphans of deceased mine workers? What's going to happen to them?
No, look, it's difficult for SATAWU to comment on that particular issue. As I mentioned earlier on, that money never came to SATAWU. It went to Bashumi, and Bashumi is an independent entity from SATAWU. Hence, there were people who were accounting. Yes, but I'm saying that, look, SATAWU never received money of the mine workers. That money went to Bashumi, and the report reveals that that money was paid to different entities by Bashumi, not SATAWU.
Mm-hmm. If I'm a SATAWU member who's watching and I've been following the story, do you think that your members should trust you, seeing the story and how it's unfolded, 2, knowing that you're apparently battling to pay salaries, and 3, that your governance, as you've said, is very weak?
What we have done when we took over the office as a task team, firstly, we received a preliminary report from Sekela Xabiso after we've appointed them. We convened a Central Executive Committee meeting where we invited them to present to the Central Executive Committee that draft report at the time, so that we can take membership into confidence. As national office bearers, as we speak, we are running all over the country explaining to members what really happened to the organization. Hence, we made sure that this matter gets investigated and all the perpetrators must go and answer in court. Because we understand that obviously, if such things are happening in an organization, it's very difficult for members to trust the leadership that is there. But we are doing our all in making sure that we are transparent to our members. Yes, at this point, it's difficult to convene all structures at the same time, but we are making sure that we go to provinces, we are explaining what is happening about the monies of the workers, we are explaining the process that is unfolding through the NPA, and of course, it's up to members, because what we have learned is that members of SATAWU love SATAWU. With all those challenges that this organization had, we still have loyal members who say, we are prepared, we trust you as the new administration within the organization. We trust you that you will revive this organization. And of course, from time to time, you must come back and account to us. And that's what we've committed to do as the current national office bearers of the union.
Anele Kiet, who is the Deputy General Secretary of SATAWU, joining me in studio there, explaining a multitude of issues that the union is facing. Let's move on now. Overloading of vehicles was a crime that must be addressed. That's according to Transport Minister Fikile Mbalula.